US Vice President JD Vance is addressing an event.
For everything that you guys do for our country. In the United States, we're proud of the deep connection between our nations, between India and the United States. Prime Minister Modi, as most of you probably know, was one of the first visitors welcomed into the Oval Office during President Trump's second term. And like President Trump, the Prime Minister inspires remarkable loyalty because of the strength of his belief in his people and in his country. Now, we're so grateful for Prime Minister Modi's hospitality as well as the reception that he and everyone else in this country have given us on this first trip for me to India. This is my first time visiting the birthplace of my wife's parents, and she's, of course, in the front row there. There you are, Usha. She's a bit of a celebrity, it turns out, in India, I think more so than her husband. But I haven't been here long, but already I've been fortunate enough to visit the Akshardham Temple. Did I pronounce that right, honey? I did okay? All right. With my family this morning, as a matter of fact. And last night, Prime Minister Modi welcomed me, Usha, and our 3 small children at his beautiful home. I've been amazed by the ancient beauty of the architecture of India, by the richness of India's history and traditions, but also by India's laser-like focus on the future. And those things, I think this appreciation for history and tradition and this focus on the future is very much something that I think animates this country in 2025. Now, in other countries I've visited, it sometimes feels like there's a flatness, a sameness, a desire to just be like everyone else in the world. But it's different here. There's a vitality to India, a sense of infinite possibility, of new homes to be built, new skylines to be raised, and lives to be enriched. And there's a pride in being Indian, a feeling of excitement about the days that lie ahead. Now, it's a striking contrast with too many in the West, where some in our leadership class seem stricken by self-doubt and even fear of the future. To them, humanity is always one bad decision away from catastrophe. The world will soon end, they tell us, because we're burning too much fuel, or making too many things, or having too many children. And so, rather than invest in the future, they too often retreat from it. Some of them pass laws that force their nations to use less power. They cancel nuclear and other energy generation facilities, even as their choices, the choices of these leaders, lead to more dependence on foreign adversaries. Meanwhile, their message to their friends, to countries like India, is to tell them that they are not allowed to grow. Well, President Trump rejects these failed ideas. He wants America to grow, he wants India to grow, and he wants to build the future with our partners all over the globe. And when I look at this audience, or when I visit this incredible country over these last couple of days, I see a people that will not be held back. Now, the most profound responsibility, I believe, that all of us have is not to ourselves, but to the next generation, to make sure we leave them with a better society than the one that our parents and our grandparents gave us. And this is the world that America seeks to create with you. We want to build a bright new world, one that's constantly innovating, one that's helping people to form families, making it easier to build, invest, and trade together in pursuit of common goals. Now, I believe that our nations have much to offer one another. And that's why we come to you as partners looking to strengthen our relationship. Now, we're not here to preach that you do things any one particular way. Too often in the past, Washington approached Prime Minister Modi with an attitude of preachiness, or even one of condescension. Prior administrations saw India as a source of low-cost labor on the one hand, even as they criticized the Prime Minister's government, arguably the most popular in the democratic world, and as I told Prime Minister Modi last night, he's got approval ratings that would make me jealous. But it wasn't just India. This attitude captured too much of our economic relationship with the rest of the world. So we shipped countless jobs overseas, and with them our capacity to make things, from furniture, appliances, and even weapons of war. We traded hard power for soft power, because with economic integration, we were told, would also come peace through sameness. Over time, we'd all assume the same sort of bland, secular, universal values, no matter where you lived. The world was flat after all. That was the thesis, and that was what they told us. And when that thesis proved false, or at least incomplete, leaders in the West took it upon themselves to flatten it by any means necessary. But many people across the world, and I think your country counts among them, they did not want to be flattened. Many were proud of where they came from, their way of life, the kind of jobs they worked, and the kind of jobs their parents worked before them. And that very much includes people in my own country, the United States of America. Now, some of you are aware of my own background. I actually didn't plan to talk about my background at all until last night at dinner while my children mostly behaved. We gave them an A- for behavior with the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister said, I have one request. I want you to talk a little bit about your background. And so I wanted to do that. For those of you who don't know anything about me, I wanted to talk about it. I come from, and I'm biased, the greatest state in the Union, the state of Ohio, a longtime manufacturing powerhouse in the United States of America. My home specifically is a place called Middletown. Now, it's not a massive city by any means. It's not Jaipur, but it's a decent-sized town in a place where people make things, which has been a point of pride in Middletown for generations. It's filled with families like my own, some of whom called us hillbillies, Americans who came down from the surrounding hills and mountains of West Virginia, Tennessee, and Kentucky to cities like Middletown in pursuit of the manufacturing jobs that were creating widespread prosperity for families all across America. They came to Middletown in search of what we call back home the American dream. In Middletown, my parents raised me. My grandparents raised me. They taught us to work hard. They taught me to study hard. And they taught me to love God and my country and always be good to your own. My granddad, who I called Papaw growing up, he typified that. Late into life, he worked as a steelmaker at the local mill. And I know India has a lot of those. Papaw's job gave him a good wage, stable hours, and a generous pension. All that allowed him to support not just him and my grandmother, but his own daughter and grandkids with him. Now, by the time I came around, money was awfully tight, but he worked hard to make a good living for all of us. Now, I know Papaw and Mamaw were grateful for the way of life their country made possible. Their generation bore witness to the formation of America's great middle class. And by creating an economy centered around production, around workers who build things, and around the value of their labor, our nation's leaders then transformed their country and made thousands of little Middletowns possible. The government supported its labor force. We created incentives for productive industries to take root and struck good deals with international partners to sell the goods made in the United States of America. But as America settled into world historic prosperity it generated, our leaders began to take that very prosperity and what created it for granted. They forgot the importance of building, of supporting productive industry, of striking fair deals, and of supporting our workers and their families. And as time went on, we saw the consequences. In my hometown, factories left, jobs evaporated, America's middle towns ceased to be the lifeblood of our nation's economy. And the United States, as it became transformed, those very people, the working class, the background of the United States of America, were dismissed as backwards for holding on to the values their people had held dear for generations. Now, Middletown's story is my story, but it's hardly unusual in the United States of America. There are tens of millions of Americans who, over the last 20 or so years, have woken up to what's happening in our nation. But I believe they woke up well before it's too late. Now, like you, we want to appreciate our history, our culture, our religion. We want to do commerce and strike good deals with our friends. We want to found our vision of the future upon the proud recognition of our heritage rather than self-loathing and fear. I work for a president who has long understood all of this, whether through fighting those who seek to erase American history or in support of fair trade deals abroad. He has been consistent on these issues for decades. And as a result, under the Trump administration, America now has a government that has learned from the mistakes of the past. It's why President Trump cares so deeply about protecting the manufacturing economy that is the lifeblood of American prosperity and making sure America's workers have opportunities for good jobs.
So that was US Vice President JD Vance speaking on US-India relations from Rajasthan. He spoke of India's laser-like focus on future and now